afternoon, guys. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is we're going to learn a little bit about gold panning and finding gold in small creeks. I have ran a couple test pans in this creek and found a couple specks of gold. It's not a lot, but it's fun. And recently I ordered this product called the Sluice Fox. And basically it is a molded injection plastic sluice box that you can use in small creeks like this to run your material through, so it's faster than panning everything out. And then once you get done with it, you can clean out all the concentrates into one bucket and pan that. So we're going to look at this Sluice Fox today. We're going to look at how to set it up, how to get it ready to use, and we're going to run some material through it and see what happens, and we're going to learn together today. So the first thing about injection molded plastic is generally it's been sprayed with some type of a release in the mold. And that release helps it to come out of the mold. That's why it's called release, but it generally ends up on the plastic itself. So you want to get rid of that. The other thing is you want to kind of season this plastic up a little bit or rough it up a little. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove these riffle trays that have what's called miner's moss in them. I'm going to show you how to do that. Then we're going to take some sand here from the creek and we're going to rough things up a little bit to season them in and get them ready to use. So stay with me and we'll get started. Okay, so you can see this tray has a connection point on it here where you can attach the front or the flare. And this is where you put your material in and it drives it down through the sluice. And you have what's called miner's moss here in these Hungarian ridges. And then you have the smaller riffles here to collect fine gold as well. So to get this thing ready, we're going to first rough it up with sand, and we can do that by just taking some of these pieces and parts out to get that done. And removing these is going to be important later as well, because you're going to want to clean this miner's moss out that could collect fine pieces of gold. You have to be careful about doing that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a screwdriver in here and we're going to come in underneath here and just kind of separate that and pop it out just like that. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And it helps if you can give yourself a little bit of a gap there to start with, just like that. Push your screwdriver in and pop it out. And that will allow that to come out, and then you can pull out the miner's moss. We'll talk more about that later, but that's how you get that in, and it just pops, excuse me, how you get it out. And it just pops back in. I got a little bit of a sticker bush trying to hang me up here. So we'll get the other one out, and then we'll get this seasoned up. And all we're really gonna do is we're gonna take this sand, which is abrasive, and we're just going to come inside here and just rough the edges of this thing up really good. Rough the inside of it up, run it on the riffles, things like that. Again, you're going to be running material through here later anyway, so you don't have to get real excited about this. This just helps. You can see that sheen of oil in that water right there where it's not mixing very well. And that's kind of what you're trying to eliminate, is that oil in the plastic from the releasing agent. And it doesn't take a whole lot. You could do this at home with emery cloth or fine sandpaper or something like that if you wanted to, but this works really well, and you can do this on the fly at the creek if you want to before you start. And you're going to want to do the same thing to these riffles and these riffle brackets, and you're going to want to do the same thing, or these Hungarian riffle for the miner's moss, and you're going to do the same thing to this flare as well. We'll get that done, we'll get it put back together, and we'll start rocking and rolling. Now the way this thing's built, it's made so that you can add sections either side by side or lengthwise to increase how much sluice box you have and the distance of sluice box that you have. I'm only using one small section because it makes it very backpackable that way. And on this end section is where you're going to snap your flare in place, just like that. And now you're ready to rock and roll by putting this in the creek. And you could put another section on here, like I said, and I'll probably order a second section for this. But for now, being that I'm doing this in very small creek areas and I want to be able to backpack this in very easily, I'm going to do it like this. It's very, very lightweight. This whole thing probably weighs, I don't know, maybe 3 pounds. But that's lightweight for a sluice box you can carry around with you. All right, so replacing the miner's moss here in the bottom. We put our miner's moss in, and we have to remember that these riffles have to be in here so that the water runs over the top of them. If we have them this way, water's gonna run up against them. So we have to put them in the right direction. And we can just look at our flow and know what direction that's supposed to be. And pop those back in there just like that. So what we're looking for is a place where we've got flow, that we can pretty much set this down and it's going to be secure. And we're going to have about 1 inch of water flowing through here. Now we just need to kind of support this. We don't really want those bottom riffles too deep in the water, about like that. And we don't want this tongue too deep in the water, about 1 inch or halfway up the flare. So we've got to get some rocks and things to build this up, but this looks like a pretty decent spot for us to begin. So let's get that kind of shored up a little bit. And we'll show you how that looks and how that works. All right, so we got things shored up here a little bit now. And let's just kind of, for our own edification, just take some material off the ground here and throw it in there. Something that's right here on the bottom, and just see how fast it cleans out the material. That's really what I want to see. How fast is that flow going? How fast is it cleaning out that material down the riffles? And how fast we're going to be able to add material to it in the end. Looks pretty good. I think we're going to try that for a little while. And now the next step is to go grab some material and run it through. Okay, so again, I'm no expert on this gold panning stuff. Don't claim to be. Just kind of starting out in the hobby. But I do know basic principles of physics. And heavy stuff is going to fall down before light stuff does. That's the whole pretense of the whole gold panning thing. You're trying to find the heaviest material, and that is usually where the gold is because it's going to be the heaviest. That and the magnetite and the black sand and stuff. So if we look right here, we've got an inside bend here that's collecting a lot of small rocks here. And there's a big pile of small rocks right there on the outside of that bend up against that moss right there. So we're going to grab a couple shovels from both of those areas. All right, so if you can see this or not, but I got way back underneath that depression right there. The water's flowing around that. I got some really dark black clay looking soil in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the classifier here and we're going to just put it in the water. Whoa, almost lost it. Put it in the water here and classify this material down into the pan. Then that's the stuff that we're going to run through our sluice, is our classified material. And we're just going to shake this down as we go. Remember, everything in here that's heavy is going to the bottom, or going in the pan, hopefully. And we're just trying to, what's called stratify the material, or make it kind of suspend inside there. And that's going to bring the lighter stuff to the top and the heavier stuff to the bottom. You got a lot of leaves in here. So you got to be careful with stuff like that, because that can be places gold can get trapped. From my limited experience, I would say that. So just keep moving around with your hands, just like this. You get as much of that down out of there as you can. All right, so what we're left in here with now is material that's smaller than that 1/4 inch. And that material is going to go in this bucket. You can see there's a lot of clay in there. And this is the material that we're going to be running through the sluice after we get a couple more of these pans classified down into this bucket. And one of the things that I wanted to show you here is I'm looking at this material that I'm dumping out. And there's a lot of quartz in here, or quartzite type material. And that's usually a fairly good sign that a possibility there could be some gold in the area. But sifting through that is usually just a good idea once you dump your pan, just to see if there's anything obvious in there that you might not want to throw out. You never know when you could have an artifact in there, an arrowhead, something like that. But nice piece of flint, you never know. But the quartz was mainly what I was looking for in that particular pan dump. Now let's go get some more. Should be left with all the light stuff and the big stuff. Get rid of that. Take our pan. Got all the good stuff in it. Get that in our bucket. Okay, get it again. All right, so we're back at the old sluice fox here. Kind of look and see where we're at. Make sure it's running the way we want it to run. And then we start taking some of this material that we've got in our bucket here, and we start running that through the sluice. And just wait till it clears out and run another one. So all we're doing now is we've classified this material once. In other words, we've taken the biggest stuff and the lightest stuff out. Now we're taking a second bite at that same process in a different format by putting those materials through the sluice box, which separates the bigger, lighter stuff, and the heavier stuff falls into the riffles and the miner's moss. And that is what you hope catches your gold, because it should be the heaviest thing in the pan. Once you've run this thing for, as long as you choose to do it, you've gotten the material that you want to get in there. And then you go to clean out. Okay, so now we're going to go through the process of cleaning out this sluice in a bucket to catch all our concentrated material and pan that out to see if we found, in fact, any gold at all. And I don't expect to find much. I mean, I really came out here just to set this thing up, to see how it operates, get used to the way it works, get used to messing with materials of different sizes and things like that, classifying things out. I've been a long time since I even did this, and I didn't do it very much the first time. I've never used a sluice box before. So this is a learning process for me, but I wanted to bring you along on my journey because I thought this sluice fox, portable sluice box, was a really cool thing. And again, this is a hobby you can get into fairly inexpensively. I mean, a single section sluice box like this is about 69 bucks. The cost of a gold pan, a classifier, and a shovel. You might be into it for a C note, and you can go out and have all the fun in the woods you want. Do other things while you're out there, obviously, but it doesn't take up a lot of room to carry this stuff, and it doesn't weigh very much because it's all made out of plastic. So you can put it all in a backpack or a pack basket, carry it anywhere you want to go, and rock and roll. Okay, they say the key to this is to make sure that when you lift this out of the water, that you keep it fairly level. And I'm just lifting it up enough to let it clean just a few more bits off the edge. If anything, I'm tilting it a little bit backwards against the riffles. And then I'm going to take the whole thing and put it in the bucket just like this. Okay, I'm taking this flare off over the bucket because there's a little sand trap groove here, so that anything that catches here on the way down is also going to be caught in that groove. So you want to clean all of this stuff out at the same time. And we'll have to remove this miner's moss. But first thing we're going to do is start washing this down with our gold pan right here in the creek. And then you want to rinse that piece of plastic off, and you want to take that miner's moss and really rinse it out in that water, because that can catch a lot of fine gold. Okay, once we've got our miner's moss out, we've done a couple final rinsings here of all the riffles at the bottom. At that point, just kind of visually look at it and make sure there's nothing glaring at you. And you should be good to go to put your miner's moss back in, your riffles back in, and be ready to go for the next run or the next time you're ready to use your sluice fox. Okay, so what we're left with now is nothing but the heaviest material from the sluice. We're going to pan that out, and that's where we'll find out if we got any gold. All right, so now we got all those concentrates in the bottom of our pan. This is really the culmination of the work we did today for the hour or so that we were getting material, setting things up and all of that. And you would probably do this 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a day just to try to get a little bit of gold. But it's fun doing this stuff, and it's enjoyable being outdoors, sitting by the creek, listening to the birds, things like that. So now you've got to pan this gold, and I'm no expert gold panner either. I'll tell you that straight up front, but you have heavier rifles here on one side of the pan and smaller ones here. So this is for your ending stuff when you get down to the really fine material. This is for the rougher stuff. And you have a smooth side over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, we got to stratify. So we want to shake this around so that that heavier material, number one, goes to the bottom. And number two, if we lean it forward a little bit, it should go into the crack of that bowl at the bottom. And once we get to that point, then we're just going to come up here and we're going to rinse some of those lighter materials off the top. And then get right back in there and stratify that material again. And repeat that same step. Shaking everything to the bottom and forward. Dump that out. And then come in here and just, until you get down to the black sand, if there's any in there, and the gold. We'll talk about that when we get to that point. Well, there is one piece of gold right there. It's so little, I don't even think you can see it. I can barely see it. And I went through this a few times. Most of what's in here is just sand. It looks like there's a few specks here and there of gold in there. But again, I didn't expect much out of this. It's just a small creek. I'm actually going to wash that right back into the creek. It was more for practice than anything else. Guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you coming out here today with me just to kind of give this sluice fox a trial run. I think it definitely works for removing the heavy stuff from the material. I didn't find any gold today. Maybe that one small piece, but I wouldn't really count that. The point of this whole video really was I wanted to learn to use a sluice box, how to set it up, things like that. And I also wanted to see what the minimum materials you need to carry out with you into the woods to kind of enjoy this hobby and how inexpensive you could do it. And I really don't have a lot of money here. Like I said, I've got a gold pan and a classifier. That was probably 20 bucks. I've got a scoop off the internet, probably another $8, $9, and you could buy anything for that. Wouldn't have to be that scoop. I've got a screwdriver. I have just an old shovel out of my shed. I have the sluice fox, which was $69, so that's the most expensive part of it, and an old 5-gallon bucket. And with that, I can carry that into the woods. You know, I can take the flare off of this thing if I want to and leave it in the bucket and mess with it when I get out there. Just drop it in the bottom of the bucket so it's not so high. Put that in, carry the pan and the classifier and a 5-gallon bucket. And I've really got everything I need other than a snack and a drink for the day to go out and enjoy gold panning and prospecting as a hobby. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And hopefully we're going to find some more gold in the future. So stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.